break Shabbos. That means if you're telling them directly. But if the thing is, let's say, I'm in a room and it's cold. Not freezing to the point I'm going to get ill. It's cold. There's no pikuach nefesh issue here. I would like it warmer. So I can invite my non-Jewish friend in. And if he says it's cold, you can tell him that, do whatever you want. Okay? You can't, you can tell him, let's say you need the refrigerator opened, and because the light was left, the light was left screwed in. You can tell him, if you want a beer, there's one in the refrigerator. And if he goes and opens the refrigerator, so now he's opening it for him. But I can't say, I need the light on, turn the light on. Or I can't even hint to him to turn the light on because I need it. You should tell him that there's something there for him. He could be in your house, he could feel cold, and he could turn the heater on. Okay, now, when it comes to, for example, a non-Jewish elevator man, he says to you, what floor? And you're telling him floor 3? No such thing. No way. There's no way. Okay? This is a real problem. People think that they're allowed to do a lot of things with non-Jews. It's just not allowed. When it comes to, let's say, you need to have food prepared and taken care of. Let's say there's a large kiddush or a simcha on Shabbos at the shul. If all the food is prepared before Shabbos, and the goy is not actually doing any malacha, I mean, he's working, he's, running around the kitchen, but fires are on, food was on the blech beforehand, he's just serving it. A Jew could do that. There's no malacha involved here. The fact that we may call that work, it's got nothing to do with anything, okay? As far as paying him for his work on Shabbos, these people have to come either before or after Shabbos and do something like set up or clean up or something like that, and they get paid more for that time. A Jew could have the same exact thing done. There are plenty of Jews who work on Shabbos doing no malachas, and they put more time in afterwards. For example, the guys who read the Sefer Torah, preparing about 12, 13 hours for the reading of the Torah, and they're reading it for a half hour on Shabbos. They're not getting paid for the reading. They're getting paid for their 12, 13 hours of work beforehand. Okay, so which they're doing before Shabbos. So they get paid for that. A Jew who's working in a shul, serving the food, no problem. Okay, so now let's say the goy got the beer out of the refrigerator. He opened the refrigerator door. That refrigerator door now stays open because if you shut the door, the light goes off, right? So it's a problem, Now let's deal for a moment with the refrigerators. You may think, forget the goyim, let's get to Jewish people. You may see in nearly all of the Shabbos books that they speak about refrigerators the way they were 15 years ago. Some of the more modern Shabbos books have come out recently, like Rabbi Raviet's book, do speak about this. There is a problem with the new refrigerators. Most refrigerators produced today are called energy-saving refrigerators. They have a computer chip. When you open the refrigerator, and you know how if the door closes, it closes onto a button, right? That lets the light go on and off. It's doing a heck of a lot more than that now. Unscrewing the light bulb is certainly not the only problem going on here. In fact, there's much more problems. When I open that door, even if the light bulb is non-existent, I just sent a message to the computer. What is the temperature now, exactly as the door is opened? And then it wants to see how long is the door open. And then it wants to see when the door is closed, what temperature is it? And then it wants to see 5 minutes later, what temperature is it once the door stays closed? Because if the refrigerator is full of a lot of liquids and fruits and stuff like that, it's going to get re-cooled down because there's not much airspace in the refrigerator, and it didn't lose much coolness, and therefore there's no need to turn the engine on. And so the refrigerator says, I'm going to save this guy energy. I'm not going to go on. But if it was open for too long, let's say you have a stupid teenager who's like, and he's looking in the refrigerator trying to find his, long lost Aunt Millie, and he can't find her, and he's no idea what's going on, okay? And the refrigerator door stays open for like 3 minutes. It's not going to care about when the door's closed anymore. It's got a timing aspect. So in other words, every time you open and close the refrigerator, you build and destroy the circuit by sending a message, which passes a fire and extinguishes a fire, to the computer chip, which is then doing things which are going to help you. So this is psik reisha v'nichale. This is a psik reisha, cutting off the head, which is beneficial to you. Okay, just like we have back on page 11. Okay, except it's not really this kid. Let's take a look at the top kid. Let's say that kid's pulling that bench at the page top 11 on the right. Let's say he had to, plow the farm at the same time, right? He needs to bring the bench in, and he also needs to plow the farm. Well, I got both things done. Here, I did the malacha. I just opened the door. Yeah, but you know what's going to happen. You know, as a definite result of opening the door, this is a definite result of pulling the bench, not only a malacha, but 4 malachas are done here. Maybe even 5 if we consider final hammer blow. And then we say, well, is it beneficial to me? Because if it's not beneficial to me, it's only rabbinic. Here we say, no, I absolutely am very concerned that I have saving of energy. So this is a dioraisa. Okay, so the fact that you unscrewed your light bulb doesn't help much. I didn't look at Shmuel and Yael's refrigerator. If the walls of your refrigerator are like this thick and it looks like thing is back from the British Mandate, okay? Sometimes in cheapo apartments they still have these old refrigerators. Then you don't have this problem, just unscrew the light bulb. If you have a normal standard refrigerator, the walls are about like that thick, okay? Chances are it's an energy-saving refrigerator. If the thing is less than 15 years old, it's an energy-saving refrigerator. The only way around this, how do you open your refrigerator on Shabbos? Find the area where the button is. It either is on the side of the door, close to where the hinge opens, okay, or it will be at the top, where the thing closes, like right under the freezer, like right next to where the chassis that had light in it. What you need to do is you need to get some extremely good tape and get that thing. The best tape is duct tape, and the best thing to use first of all is get Yael's what's it called? Nail polish remover. Let's say tonight. Clean the area really well. Okay, let it dry off for a good couple hours. Okay, buy this extremely strong tape. In this country they call it Devik Bad material tape. In America it's called duct tape. They add more glue to this type of tape than others. And experiment for one day if you have the right tape. Okay, you put it on the button, do it in the morning, and then that night see, is the button still in? Don't do the experiment on Shabbos for the first time. Okay, now why, you may say, well, why don't I just keep it this way all the time? The reason not is because an energy-saving refrigerator whose mechanism is not allowed to work, it's not very good for the machine. So you really only want this done for Shabbos. And you say, well, it's going to ruin my machine, it's going to be hardcore. Hashem pays for Shabbos. Whatever you need, is your machine probably going to last less time? Yeah. Okay. But Hashem will get you the extra few $100s over the course of time. It's not going to break on you in one Shabbos. Don't quote me on that. I don't want to pay for anybody's refrigerator. But I've been doing it for years. Okay. So, you will see it, that it's, just that the light isn't going on off. But it's much, much more than that. Now, what happens if you're at somebody else's house? Not everybody knows this information. Opening and closing somebody else's refrigerator is a little bit of a problem, because here you have a doubt and a dioraisa. Not everybody knows this. In fact, most people who are old, like Josh and I, okay, they sat and they learned the laws of Shabbos in yeshiva when this didn't exist. Who knows this? The people who are learning Shabbos today, with some of the newer books, if they were lucky enough to pick up the newer books, or if they had a teacher who taught them. But since refrigerators have been around a lot longer than energy-saving refrigerators have been around, knowledge doesn't get out there so quick. Okay? The general thing is the populace is generally dumb. Okay? But this is definitely a problem. Now, if you go to buy a new refrigerator, in this country, you tell the guy at the store that you want the refrigerator to have a bris. That means before you get the refrigerator, okay, you don't take it off out of the store. You order it. When they go from the factory to the store, they send it to the Institute of Shabbos and Halacha. Before it arrives at your store, you pay an extra $100, and they have a separate button that you push installed. When you push that button, the computer is off. The light is also off. And not only that, your refrigerator went on an automatic Shabbos clock. 15 minutes on, 15 minutes off, 15 minutes on, 15 minutes off. Your temperature on Shabbos will not be the most even wonderful thing, okay? But there's no thermostat, nothing. So it's a fantastic thing. In America, forget about it, okay? The only way to deal with this is just, the tape thing. Shmuel and Yael now don't own their own refrigerator. You're renting from someone else. This is what you have to do. The tape thing works. That's it. That's what you do. Okay? Okay. Let's say, 1 second. Okay, 1 moment. Okay, yeah, elevators. And in many places in America, and a few places in Israel, escalators. You should unplug that. Even if, let's say, you're in a hospital, okay, you got a problem, okay, use the stairs, because let's just deal with escalators. They're much easier to see. Modern escalators. If the escalator has people on it, it's moving. If it doesn't, it stops. Okay, in a busy place like an airport, it's always got people on it, right? But there are sensors. When you're on there, it has sensors on each step. Weight, because it wants to know how much is if you're big and fat, the escalator is working harder. The motor goes more. Okay? Same thing with the elevators. It weighs you. Okay? And wants to know how many people are in there. Not only that, there's a safety mechanism, so the door will not close on you, i.e. an electric eye. All this is sending information to the computer. And again, 4 or 5 malachas involved in walking through the elevator door. What about a Shabbos elevator? Highly, because the kosher one, you've got to have the safety mechanism either dismantled, which means the door can close on you, okay, because going through the electric eye is a problem. Fat chance for them to allow that in America. Or they have to pay a very expensive thing where it will then start, you see this in old age homes here, where they need to have the safety thing. It lets you go in, there is no safety eye, there is no weighing it, it's working at full speed ahead, whether there's one mouse in there or Fatso Fatma and her 25 friends, okay, it's working at full speed, full force. Before the door will close, it will, for 3 seconds, go beep, 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 and then after the third beep, if you're a Shabbos observant person, you better be out of the way of the door. Because then, if you are still like, oh, I just want to get in, you're going to rush your way in, you're got a big doubt if you're going to be breaking Shabbos. So when you, as a Shomer Shabbos person, and there's a Shomer Shabbos elevator, and it starts going, be-doo, 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 get out of the way of the door. Because right now they're reactivating the safety mechanism, so the beam will be there, and it'll see if there's anyone in there. In the meantime, when you were walking through and there was no beeping going on, there's nothing there, and there's nothing weighing you. And it's going to stop on every single floor. Okay, so these things exist in Israel. find it very unlikely that you're going to find it in America. Now, in major Jewish metropolises, like for example, Cleveland. I needed to get into Cleveland Clinic when my wife and I went for an emergency operation. So everything is automated, but there are guards at the doors, and if somebody walks up who is shabbos, the guard who is standing in front of the one door of the hospital that's not locked and not automated will allow you through. You then, as you walk in, on a little chair right next to the inside of the door, is instructions for the Shomer Shabbos people how to get from here to there in the hospital through one doors that are not, you got to go up 3 floors, down across the hall, down 2 floors, and then you get into the next wing without going through an automated door. Okay, this also existed in New Jersey. Many places don't have this. How are you going to get in and out of the hospital when these automated doors are already working? The only way to do it is to not, let's say you're doing this because your loved one needs your help. If you go through the door backwards, strange way, right? It's already door button. Not only that, I'm going to have another situation. I won't go through when I'm the first one going through. I let some other guy go through first because he's going through for himself, and I go through when he's going through. Therefore, did I get a benefit from this machine doing what it's doing? It was already opening for him. My going through, even though I'm also in the beam, I didn't affect anything, which helped me because it was already opened because the boy went through. I myself went through backwards in a weird way. So I have a rabbanon on a durbanon. And I have a situation of the health of somebody who needs me there to help them. Put this all together, it's allowed. But basically, don't assume that anything automated you're allowed to use. Now, when you say, what about the electric eyes that are all over the world? In other words, in many places, you've got the satellites, and you've got camera surveillance all over. Okay. Again, you're not getting a direct benefit from it, and you're not doing an action that is a malacha. You're walking around. Since you're getting no direct benefit, it's not visible that anything is happening. Because of this, it is permitted. Okay? Otherwise, you all just live in our living rooms and lock the door for the rest of Shabbos. Okay? So yes, you're allowed to walk outside, even though there are surveillance cameras. Yet, what about, let's say, students of mine who were living here in Jerusalem? They were the only religious people in the building. All of the secular people living in the building wanted it to be that the entire courtyard was lit up when somebody would walk in, so that they can see their way to the door and go in. Okay. So here they are, and anytime they would walk into the entranceway of the building or the courtyard or approaching their building, the lights went on Shabbos. They asked the neighbors to turn it off, and being anti-religious, they said, no. I said, well, can we pay extra to have the thing lit all Shabbos? No. Okay, great. So there was no way around it, and so what we asked the rabbi, what should they do? They should see, without walking into the courtyard, how far into the courtyard can they see without the aid of the light. And from there on, where it's too dark, they should specifically not be looking down at the sidewalk, look up at the trees or something else. That, remember for themselves how many steps they have to take. So that they're not getting any benefit from this light. And they should also not be going in any type of a way which would be normal, again, backwards, close the eyes. I had this situation, same thing. Here's another situation that could happen to my mother was in intensive care. Happened to Erev Shabbos. I got to the hospital, there was no time to deal with anything, was dealing with mom. Shabbos comes in, and I'm looking at the bathroom. I saw this right before Shabbos. You cannot get in the bathroom without a problem. As you open the door, the light goes on. As you get up from the toilet, the water flushes. Okay, and because it's intensive care, before the toilet flushes, a robot comes out from the wall, sprays the seat, and wipes the seat for you. Okay, with some type of a antibacterial thing. So I'm looking at this thing like, oh, okay, great. I'm going to hold it in for the rest of Shabbos. So, what am I going to do? Put a cork in it, right? So like, there's got to be some way on it. So I thought, after Shabbos, I didn't have a chance to do it. I thought it was right. I asked the rabbi after Shabbos, he told me I was correct. So what did I do? Before Shabbos, I looked. It's a large bathroom because there are people going in wheelchairs or being carried in. It's a big bathroom. So I counted 3 steps in, turn right, sit down. Right? Okay, great. And of course I had tissues, so I didn't have to rip the toilet paper. So I closed my eyes before entering the bathroom. I propped the door opened, okay, so that I wouldn't be affecting it. But then there was also electric eye that if the person isn't in there went on anyway if you walked in. Okay, so I got to the seat without the need of the light. When I'm sitting down already, I don't need the light, so I can open my eyes. I did what I had to do. As far as the robot and the flushing of the toilet and the cleaning it, there's nothing I can do about it. And not only that, I'd rather flush it myself. I'd rather wipe it up myself. Tell the robot to go to hell. I mean, I don't need it. I don't want it to happen. Okay? And it's happening agav, on its own. So therefore, since I closed my eyes and didn't want this other thing to happen, I can't say it's nichale that I got benefit out of it. It's rabbinic anyway, and I needed to be in the intensive care because they're understaffed and my mother needed help constantly. So there's definite pikuach nefesh. This wasn't just a social visit, believe me, okay? And anaphylactic shock. I mean, serious situation. Okay, so it was permissible, but to go in the normal way would not be permissible. Okay, so now. Freezers, especially the tall full unit freezers. They have usually got today.
Rabbi.
Yeah.
In this case of the bedroom is only a pikuach nefesh.
Right. In a situation like that, otherwise, if I just wanted to go and visit my wife as hi, how you doing? Oh, the baby's so cute, right? First of all, in the Israeli hospitals, don't worry about this. They don't do this to the bathrooms. They're not automated. You walk in, lights on. It's mechanical. Okay, the lights on beforehand. All the Israeli hospitals here, you do not have to worry about this issue. You may have an issue on getting into the ward for security, especially maternity ward, because they want to make sure people aren't stealing babies. Okay, so you either stay there or you wait until somebody else is walking through the door and you jump through. Okay? Anyway.
Rabbi.
Yeah.
In Brazil, all the buildings have the tank in the light to light up the light. The automatic tank.
When you walk in, the light goes on.
So okay. What's better? Go in the shul or stay home in Shabbat?
Oh, okay. In other words, in the synagogue this happens?
No. In the buildings. But to go out of the apartment, we need, in the stairs, we need to pass through this.
Like security light.
Again, if you're not getting benefit from the light, in other words, let's say you can close your eyes. Or let's say there's light anyway. For example, some staircases have windows.
So I can do this. It's not only
with your eyes closed. I wouldn't suggest doing this while you're holding a baby. Okay. And that could be okay. All right, but because you're not getting any benefit from it.
It's not only in pikuach nefesh, Ken?
What?
It's not only in the case of pikuach nefesh.
That's correct. In the hospital, the situation there is that I could be getting a benefit from it. I mean, let's face it. I want the light on in the bathroom. Okay. I had to make sure that I went into the bathroom, in a strange way. Didn't get benefit from it. To just walk into the situation and, deal with this type of. Oh, I hear what the question is, right? Because I had said that it's only in the pikuach nefesh situation. No, I was wrong in that situation because, like the rabbi told me with my students who had to get into their building, it wasn't an issue of Pikuach Nefesh. They were allowed to go to and from shul. They just had to close their eyes when it got to the point that they would not be able to see without the light, which is only a small part of the hallway. Mm-hmm. In other words, the whole courtyard, there was ambient light from the street lights. And near their own apartment, they put a little, night light attached to their apartment, which is on all the time, so they could see anyway. It was only a small part of the hall. They walked in and they kind of felt for the handrail, and after that they really didn't need the light, so they're not getting any benefit from it. And they went in backwards and it went on that way. Okay, now, freezers, especially the single unit freezers. I want you all to go over to your freezers, open them up when there's no noise. No noise in the house, like the kids are asleep. Listen, put your ear to the thing. Is it right now going, do you hear a fan when the thing's closed? If no, then think, when I open the door to the freezer, do I now all of a sudden hear a fan go on? What's the reason for this? The temperature of a freezer is very cold. It takes a lot of energy to cool that air. You open the freezer door and all the air comes out. They don't want that. They want to suck the air in so that the cold air does not go out. It's kind of holding cold air in. You have to, again, deal with making sure that the freezer does not know that you opened the door. There's got to be some button somewhere. Tape it down before Shabbos. Check out to make sure this tape is not going to come off so easily. Remember to untape it after Shabbos. Check yourself and make sure this thing works. Each freezer is different. Okay, some of them are light sensor. Okay, alright, fine. Okay, what about putting a fire out? Okay, I'm going to explain something here that you have to ignore. I'm assuming you're not living on the farm where the next farmhouse is, less than 3 miles away, okay? This thing, ignore it. Don't do this, okay? This is called possible murder, okay? You're living in cities. You have homes that are close to each other. Trees next to each other, from one house to the next house. If your house is a flame, then the old lady on the second floor of the house next door could die because you didn't get the fire out. Okay, so anytime you have a fire in a home, in an area where you have other people who could get hurt, get the fire extinguisher and you put the fire out immediately in a normal way. Period. Done. End. Nothing to talk about. Okay, definitely Pikuach Nefesh. Just straight out, put the fire out. Okay? I will tell you about this situation here. I was in Bnei Brak by my uncle's house. The electricity went out right before Shabbos. We had just left for shul. And his wife and daughters, who I don't know where their brains were, put these little tea lights, those are the Shabbos lights that come in like a little tinfoil cup, short little things. They put those on the tablecloths and lit them so there would be light in the house. When my uncle came home, he went over to the area where the fire extinguisher was, brought it to the table right next to his seat. He said, there is going to be fire tonight. When these things get towards the bottom, it's going to get hot and tablecloths are going to go on fire. So what they did in the beginning is they took soda and stuff and poured it around these, paper. Back then it wasn't plastic tablecloths. Back then it was paper tablecloths. If you guys remember these things, right? And they made that little puddle of stuff around it, not putting the candles out. And then at a certain point, we're all having the meal, and all of a sudden the first tablecloth catches on fire. Within a few seconds, the second tablecloth is on fire. And we're watching for a moment as my uncle is holding the by the way, my uncle is a rabbi and his children are teaching in yeshiva. This is like a very serious family, right? And he's got the fire extinguisher. He's like holding it and watching. Okay, we're in a multi-family building, and the distance between one building and another, you've been in Bnei Brak, or if you may have seen pictures, it is the most populated area in the country, okay? More populated than Gaza, if that tells you anything, okay? It's horrible. So, at a certain point, the area, the water or Coca-Cola, whatever they poured onto the tablecloth, was kind of stopping the fire. But then it kind of jumped over and got to the next area which didn't have it, at which point my uncle used the fire extinguisher and all over the table, all over the chicken and everything else, right? It's like, we're talking about people's lives over here. There are no games. But I will, on the opposite side of the story, tell you about an incident that happened a few months before I was in Monsey. I was in yeshiva in Monsey, New York. They had just cleared a large area of the forest because they were starting to build a new area of the city of Monsey. Monsey is a nearly completely Orthodox city in New York State. So they had just knocked down part of the forest, built some nice homes. These homes were actually very large homes for people who had like 7-8 bedroom homes, big things. They each looked like barns. Okay, large yards, no trees because they had just knocked the forest down. People had just some of them had grass they brought in, sod. Some of them was just dirt. Okay, it had just rained. It was the first Shabbos of this family in their home. Something went wrong with the electricity. They're sitting in their home on Shabbos. It's a one-family home. And the distance between homes, specifically before there's no trees, it's not going to catch the next home on fire. And it had just rained. Everything went. The family is sitting at the Shabbos table. Something goes wrong with the electricity. One of the walls catches on fire from inside and starts smoking, and then it's going. This is the first Shabbos in the house. And so they are all only a few feet away from the front door. They all leave. There's no one else in the house. Now the question is, do they go to the neighbor and call the fire department? If they don't call the fire department, since they were home, they lose their insurance. And so they made the calculation, and they were correct. Absolutely prohibited to call the fire department. Nobody's life in danger. But all their money, they lost their home. Let's tell you the good end of the story. Not every story has a good ending. Life isn't so simple. But the whole city of Monsey took up a collection. They bought them a new home. Okay, but but this is not like life isn't always so pretty.
Right. Not
everything is so simple and easy. Wouldn't it be cute if it was? Okay, life is full of tests. The stories are very different. Bnei Brak and a clearing in Monsey. All right. Almost every situation you are going to be in life, that there's going to be a fire on Shabbos, somebody's life's going to be in danger. In your home, the next home, your building, the next building. So basically, ignore all of this stuff and put the fire out. If you happen to be at a farmhouse in the middle of nowhere, okay, and the ground outside is wet, right, then you are not allowed to put it out. Okay. By the way, a way of getting around this is install a fire alarm that goes directly to the fire department. We had one of these things in my home when I grew up, okay? Whether you're home, whether you're not home, the fire department is called directly. It's worth it, okay? Because in that situation, if you're in such a situation where your home is so far away from everyone else, just get an alarm and it'll go directly there and save your entire home. I'll be fine. As far as the Shabbos candles, do not have the Shabbos candles in the middle of the table. This is a stupid idea. Also, having them on a shelf where kids can grab them, a ball can be thrown and they can knock over is a stupid idea. They sell these boxes, glass boxes with a glass door, and you put the candles inside of them. This is much safer. It stops houses from going on fire. My suggestion is get the Shabbos candles in a little glass box, okay? If you don't have a lot of money, they have these mini little glass boxes for like Hanukkah menorahs, okay? And just put 2 little candles inside the little box. Might not be the prettiest thing. One day when you have more money and you get a big pretty box, do it, okay? In the meantime, save people's lives. Keep the candles in a little box, even if it doesn't mean you have the beautiful candlesticks, okay? Okay.
And in an emergent or in a situation where you need something right away, it would be okay to use like a hurricane lamp. Because
in other words, instead of the Shabbos candles, as long as you're lighting it before Shabbos, okay, it's fine. Okay. The problem is it should not be an oil which puts out a horrible smell. There is a prohibition against, not a prohibition, it was a suggestion, but it's all actually kosher. Kerosene makes a real stinky smell. It's not kerosene, it's some type of paraffin or something, like most of them are. Most of them are not kerosene, because kerosene explodes, okay? Then it's fine. If it is kerosene, see if you can get something else. Okay? Okay, so, alright, fine. So now, it's not supposed to be that the Shabbos candles are giving off a horrible odor. Okay, fine.
Olive oil would be all right to use because I have not had any bad smells from like olive oil.
No problem. That's all fine.
Okay.
So the one mentions that kerosene is the one that has a hard odor. Okay. Now, as far as using lights, there's no problem to use it. You just can't turn it on. So if the thing's going on and off on its own, no problem. Okay. By the way, if you have problems with your refrigerator, let's say you have an extremely sensitive thermostat. Okay, you open a door and 15 seconds later the thermostat always goes on. You can solve the problem by putting your refrigerator on a Shabbos clock, and you can say to yourself, I sleep between 10 o'clock at night and 8 o'clock in the morning, so that's when the refrigerator will be on. Okay, and then I'm out of the house by 8:30 and it's shul, so I can. From 8 to 8:30, it will be off. Okay, then the time I'm at shul, it can be on. When do I normally go for my Shabbos nap? I can have it on. When am I having my meal? When I want to go in and out of the refrigerator, have it off. Okay, I mean, these are very easy ways of getting around things. I personally think the tape is the best way, but there are some refrigerators that have sensitive thermostats. By the way, with the energy-saving refrigerators, you should know that the thermostats are very not sensitive. Okay, very, very not. And because of that, most hold that it's not a problem as far as the thermostat thing. If you were dealing with the problem of the computer chip, you are not dealing so much with the problem of the thermostat. Okay. What about moving an electrical item that's on? Let's say, for example, a fan. There's a major difference between pushing the mechanical button that makes it turn back and forth, which is a problem, because if it's turning back and forth, even though all it is setting the gears going, you are actually creating more torque, and this pulls more electricity. Okay, that's a problem. But moving the fan, let's say it's plugged in and I'm sure that I'm not going to pull it out of the wall. It's right now facing the bed. Well, I'm not sitting in the bed right now. I'm sitting in the chair. I'd like it to face the chair. Can I pick the whole thing up and move it? No problem. It's moksa. No, it's not. It's got a definite Shabbos use. But it's got electricity in it. And so, what's the problem? No problem whatsoever. But it's got a fire in it. It doesn't make it moksa. It's allowed to be moved, just so long as I'm careful that it's not going to be pulling out of the wall. Now, what could be a problem is, let's say you need the fan during the day because it's hot, but at night it's kind of cool. So you take the fan and you turn it towards the wall and put the fan right up to the wall. So instead of the fan sounding like this, now when I push it right up to the wall, it sounds like this. Why? Again, it's got more torque, which pulls more electricity. The way these simple motors work, as they have negativity, force in a negative way, they work harder. So therefore, that would be prohibited. But just turn it to a different direction where it's not going against something specific, no problem. Okay.
Were those, Rabbi? You know, the fans that's got the automatic, the fans that have like the automatic movement. It's okay to use would it be all right to like say change the, to pull that plug up so it'll stay in one spot? Okay.
No, is that pulling less electricity?
Okay.
Anyway, in other words, anything you're doing to affect the electrical current is a problem. So it can be in one position or be moving back and forth, but you cannot pull that button.
Okay.
Okay, even though that button is not electrical. Okay, still. Now, there's another thing also. It's not just the pull of the electricity. It also happens to be building. Why? Right now, the gears are moving. They're moving anyway, but they have no negative torque against them. When I put my thing, this is moving this way, and here's the switch, and I push the switch down, and now the gears are moving together, and now the thing is working. When I do this, I have actually made the thing start to work. It's also makapapatish, the final hammer blow, because until that button goes in, these gears are useless, spinning in the air. It's only when those gears move with this thing, and now they're both moving together, and then I am making the thing useful. Okay, I'm finishing up the project. Okay. So again, you can have clocks set up to turn lights and air conditioners and heaters and stoves on and off. Well, stoves meaning heating stoves, not stoves for cooking. Here's a major mistake that people make. If I have a hot plate, if you're not Sephardic, okay, then the hot plate needs to be on from before Shabbos started until you are done using it. You can have a timer set up to say lunch is over at noon. It's going off at noon. Fine. But it's not going back on Shabbos. If you're Sephardic, there's a small group of Sephardim, the majority hold like the Ashkenazim, that a complete liquid that cooled down, if you heat it up again, you are cooking it on Shabbos. Some Sephardim, and when people say, oh, all Sephardim, they don't know what they're talking about, okay? Some Sephardim, usually not those in yeshiva, okay, they have an opinion to rely on. Happens to be a side, it's a Ashkenazic opinion. Okay, the main Sephardic opinion actually is that a liquid is liable for cooking again. Okay, there is an opinion that is held by some parts of the Sephardic community that a liquid which was cooked and cooled down could be heated again. So by that group, if they have their if they have their hot plate going off and going on Shabbos automatically, they have what to rely on. You, the guest at such a Sephardic person's house, are allowed to rely on them. Why? Their opinion isn't a stupid opinion. It's not based on nothing. It is not the Ashkenazi opinion. It is not the majority Sephardic opinion. But it is a reliable opinion. Do I suggest you do this? No. But if you go to someone's home, like for example, I had Sephardic students of mine. She's Moroccan. He was born in Iran, but he happened to be Muslim, but he then became Jewish. Okay, so here he is. He's going by the Persian tradition, Jewish Persian tradition. So Persians had no problem with the reheating of liquid. Okay. That's if it's majority liquid, not if it's somewhat. That's if it's minority liquid. Okay, if it's mainly liquid, they wouldn't do it. So now he said he came to my house and he put the cold gefilte fish with some sauce from the refrigerator that his wife had made on my heat source. I was a little confused whether I would be. He's allowed to eat it. Would I be able to eat this when it got heated up? Happened to be, I had a handy-dandy Persian judge living right on top of me, okay? Doesn't everyone have that? So I asked him, and he said, look, the opinion that he's relying on is a reliable opinion. You as an Ashkenazic can't do it, but it's not like he's a goy doing something wrong. He said, you're allowed to rely on him. You can't tell him to do it for you, but he did it. You can have benefit from it. No avera, no prohibition was done. Fine. Okay, so you don't have to pull your Ashkenazic or more stringent Sephardic opinions on others who are more lenient, so long as what they're doing is based on knowledge and is actually correct. So, if you see somebody taking something which was fully cooked and is cold, and they're putting it onto a hot plate, which turned on its own sometime in the middle of Shabbos, then this is not something you should do, but you are allowed to benefit from what others did. If they're not doing it specifically for you, but they're doing it for themselves, because that's their tradition. Fine.
Rabbi?
Yeah.
Being in, say, like in an Ashkenazic household, you wouldn't have that hot plate coming on and off during the day anyway, would you?
Right. My hot plate was on the whole time. Okay? And he just took the thing out of the refrigerator and stuck it on my hot plate. Okay? Because, he came with his wife and his, up-teen kids for Shabbos. And, I saw before Shabbos, he stuck a bunch of things in the refrigerator and he stuck a bunch of things on the hot plate, It's kind of like potluck, we're eating together, but everyone helps, right? And so when you have big families, you're not expected to cook everything, people bring in help, right? So I wasn't paying attention to what was going on. At a certain point, I see something come out of the refrigerator and go on. I didn't want to embarrass him. I asked the person, judge upstairs, and I was told it was fine. By them, and therefore, since it is acceptable by his tradition, I am allowed to benefit from it. Okay, fine. All right. If the lights in your house go off, by the Shabbos switch or whatever it is, right, and you're up late reading, you're not allowed to use the Shabbos candles for reading alone, unless you have another religious Jew right next to you. What's the reasoning? Because candles that, we're talking about oil candles, not wax candles. Okay, wax candles is a different thing. An oil candle, you may come to add fuel. That would be d'oraisa. D'Rabbanan, they added a prohibition that a single person who's reading, he's absorbed in his learning, even if it's Torah learning, and he's not going to pay attention to the fact that it's Shabbos. He's just sitting there and learning. And just like all the time during the rest of the week, because he's sitting there with candles during the rest of the week also, right? Because everyone didn't have electricity. So therefore, he may come to add oil to it. So therefore, on Shabbos, the prohibition of reading next to an oil lamp, if you are the only observant Jew there in the room, is a problem. If there's another one, then people watch each other and say, hey, Shimon, don't add oil. So therefore, that's the issue. If you have an oil lamp, and that's what you're reading from because the lights are off, only if there's another Jew who is there and is aware of this halacha, then you're fine.
So in that situation, it'll be like a checks and balance type thing.
A check and balance. That's the whole thing. That's why the rabbis prohibited it. Because they say, you may come to do it. But if you have a friend watching you, you're not going to come to do this.
Okay.
So they didn't make the prohibition then. Okay? This is, again, only by oil. Alright? By wax or by electricity, not an issue. Okay? Okay. Let's talk about another situation. The car. Let's say you need to get somewhere by car because of some emergency. You're going to the hospital. You're allowed to drive your car to the hospital if it's an emergency. You're not allowed to turn the car off because you can get to the hospital. You can't go home on Shabbos. I'm going to run out of gas. It's not good for the motor, whatever. You're not allowed to turn it off. What about an ambulance or a cab? Are they allowed to turn it off? The answer is yes. Why? they may be needed for another emergency on Shabbos. If they run out of gas, there ain't any place to get it, they may need it, so the thing needs to be in working situation. Is the ambulance allowed to return back to its station? Yes. So it can be in a still location to be able to get to sick people. Because if everything's waiting at the hospital, you can have a bunch of people die because you're being stringent about Shabbos. And therefore, yes, the ambulance can come home. You, the private person, you're not going to be needed again on Shabbos. Oh, well, maybe the second child is going to also have an emergency. Get off it. Okay? An ambulance is there because it's set up as an emergency vehicle. Most homes don't have more than one emergency in a day, okay? You hope. All right, so, fine.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah. That also goes as far as, you got out of the car and the light goes on as you open the door. Well, you're allowed to do that if you're dragging your sick loved one into the emergency room. Are you allowed to shut the door? No. What? Somebody could steal my car. And so? And are you allowed to carry the keys? Why? There's no Eruv.
Right.
So basically you're leaving your keys in the car, door open, engine on, and running into the emergency room. Believe me, you won't be the first person to do this. There's many people, dad's having a heart attack, they couldn't care less about the stupid car. They grab dad and bring him in. You will not be the first person with your car not parked on the lines outside the emergency room, but the door's open, and I guarantee you, you're not the first person for this to happen to. People are dealing with life and death. They're not thinking about their possessions. All right? Are you likely to lose your car? It's possible. Okay.
Rabbi.
Yeah.
Sorry to interject here. In a situation like where I'm at, we've got at the hospitals, at least in my area, they have. And why can't I think of the word? Where they'll park your car for you. Is that okay to do?
You can't tell them to do this. You can say, like this, you're running in, let's say it's not, the next 5 seconds is not going to be a life and death issue. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you had to get to the hospital on Shabbos, but the 5-second explanation is not going to be the difference between living and dying here. Okay, somebody broke a leg, they're conscious. Okay, fine. So you could tell I forgot what the thing. I think it was the Vinds of the Sea, Courtier or whatever, the guy. Okay, who's there? Right? You tell him, as a religious Jew, I'm not allowed to do anything which wasn't necessary to get this person to the hospital. I can't shut the doors to my car. I can't do anything. I left the keys in the inside. You can do whatever you want.
But like a valet service.
Telling him what to do, I think it's called valet parking, whatever it is. I'm not telling him what to do. I'm telling him what the situation is. He can figure it out, or it can be a dunce.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Now, by the way, just turn the page for a minute. Shmuel, you guys are still there?
Yes, Rabbi.
Okay, fine. We're not turning really to 40 just yet. Okay, but we're turning for a minute. Let's say, and this happens in a lot of hospitals. So the guy does park the car for you. You ran into the emergency room. He now comes running after you to give you your keys. That's a public place, this private place once I'm inside the building, and he hands you the keys. Look at the bottom of 40 of the ancient picture. From public to private, private to public. I can't pick up the keys. I can tell him to put the keys down on the chair. He's already standing there. And then I can pick the keys up. But if he's coming in from outside and it's a problem. If he's coming through the door and there's the keys. He's outside. He's holding the key. I'm inside. It's a problem. Once he already comes into the emergency room to come and get you, he's inside. No problem. Okay? Now, as far as the keys being muksa, you have things there that are for the car, and you also happen to have things there such as the house. Okay? Or your closet. So you got a bunch of keys on there. Those aren't muksa. It's fine. Okay? If it was just a car key, then it's muksa. and you can't pick it up. Okay, back to page 39. The final hammer blow, Makeb Patish. What does it say in the ancient picture at the bottom of 39? It says, completing an object by applying the finishing touches. Okay, let's take a look at this picture. This guy, again, is a brain scientist, okay, the guy who wrote this book. Let's look at this. Just follow me for a minute. This is not a haphazard picture. There are, just like we had back here by Borer, right? You don't have to turn to the page. There was the issue of dealing with Borer on food, and then with toys, and then with selection into like it's no good from bad. It's just like putting all this type of book with that type of book, and then these are different types of Borer. Okay, well over here he has the section that is on the boat, this Diraisa, and he has boardwalk, which is all Juraban. Okay, so let's first deal with the boat. Okay, so now let's take a look at this guy here. What's the basic concept of Makeb Patish? Until now, the item is almost finished. In fact, when I have these shoes, okay, if the shoelaces are coming out of the box, the shoelaces aren't in yet. I just spent $100 on the shoes, okay? Are those shoes finished? Oh yeah. Are they ready for sale? Yeah. Can I use them without the shoelaces? Oh, get off it. Right? So putting the shoelace in makes the shoe usable. It doesn't cost more. It's not considered an unfinished shoe. Otherwise, I wouldn't spend $100 on it. It's a very finished shoe. The only thing is, it's finished as far as saleability. It's not finished as far as usability. So therefore, since it is not yet usable, putting the shoelaces in, whether the shoe is new, even if it's old shoelaces, or whether it's new shoelaces in an old shoe, so long as those shoelaces were not in this shoe before Shabbos, even if it's an old shoe and an old shoelace, but the shoelace was never in this shoe, gong off, can't do it. So now, what does this mean as far as Shabbos? We have this many times that a shoelace breaks on Shabbos. Usually most people have two pairs of shoes. Bedroom slippers and shoes, or weekday shoes and Shabbos shoes if they happen to have more money, okay? One second, come on in.
Hello.
Yes.
Menachem is finishing the painting because when I'm trying to paint, he's shaking the ladder and making problems. I can't paint when someone's shaking the ladder. So anyway, bottom line,
Okay.
I'm gonna tell him what I'll deal with it.
So what kind of makes that paper sound to do? Because I can do it when someone comes.
I'm gonna bring him down
I gotta
here.
bring him down.
Hold on, guys. I'll be right back.
Okay.
Got to deal with the children.
Coming.
Okay, so when we have the shoelace break, I'm really unable to take a new shoelace and put it in, or even an old shoelace which wasn't used in this shoe before and put it in. So therefore, there have been times where I've walked a shoe in my box or bedroom slippers or whatever it is, because that's the only shoe I have. That's it. Okay. Or you get a weekday shoe. The issue of wearing nice clothes for Shabbos is not a requirement. It's something which you should treat Shabbos with more respect. But the biggest issue of respect for Shabbos is following the halachas. So better to walk around looking like, a complete slob because you don't have a proper pair of shoes for Shabbos, except this one thing which looks like, you got 10 colors of paint on it. Okay, fine. That's what you're going to use if the shoelace broke on it. Okay, so now, let's take another look here. This happens not so often. They don't do this as much as they used to. Okay? Those of us who are older may remember that if you bought a nice suit, they used to put these stitchings at the pocket that you would just like take one end, pull it, and the whole string came out. Okay, just one pull. You don't need a knife. You don't need anything. It just comes right out. That's just so you know that nobody else ever stuck their grubby hands in your new suit, right? Okay, and the pockets are not usable without that. Now, I'm not talking about the stringency that some people do, and it's actually very praiseworthy. If you have enough money that you have a suit just for Shabbos, or Shabbos and Yom Tov, many people, if they're not living in an Eruv, have the pockets sewn closed internally, okay? It may even come from the store that way, but not in this way where you just pull the string, where, some people just don't like to put things in their pockets. Your suit looks more neat and straight, okay? And, you don't want to have bulges coming out. So they leave that sewed. Why? If you left something in your pocket and now you don't have an Eruv, you have a problem of carrying. So many people who have a Shabbos suit have their pockets always permanently sewed closed. That's not a problem. What we're talking about here is this external thing. You see this done. I have not seen it so much lately. When I was younger, this was standard. Pants and suits. You had this external stitching outside to show you that the suit was new. Okay? It was a stupid concept. Okay? And you just pull it and it comes right out. Okay? So, that thing is a problem to remove that stitching on Shabbos. No problem to use the suit on Shabbos. Let's say you bought a new suit. It's 5 minutes before Shabbos. You don't have time to remove anything but the suit on, and then you realize, hey, it's got this stitching in it. You're allowed to wear the suit. You just can't remove the string, because removing the string here isn't an issue of unsewing. That's not the issue. The issue is the final hammer blow. You may also have the issue, if it's holding two pieces of material together, of pulling it apart, which would be seam ripping, which we have is tearing. That's another problem, okay? Right now, we're not dealing with that malacha. We're dealing with the malacha of the final hammer blow, okay? It's also a problem of seam ripping, which it goes under korea of ripping from before. Okay. Those are deoraisas. Let me think of another one. Okay. Many women's fancy dresses have got a belt that you put in, and this belt, usually you wash the dress with it in. I mean, you put the belt in, and it's meant to stay there. When you get the dress from the dress box, okay, the belt is on the side. But usually you thread this thing through it. It's there. I mean, when are you removing it? You throw the thing in the garbage. I mean, you're not. It stays there. Putting that belt in on Shabbos for the first time is a problem, because now the dress is completely usable. The same exact way as the shoelaces. But a regular belt, such as in a guy's pants or on cheaper women's clothing, where the belts are easily put in and taken out, and it's meant to be. Sometimes I use it, sometimes I don't. Maybe I ate too much this week, no belt. Whatever it is, right? Where the belt is in and out, and I remove it before I wash it or whatever. No problem whatsoever. Okay. Again, the basic point of what you know is, am I finishing the last touches of this thing to make it finally usable? Okay. Okay. Let's get out of the boat and go over to the boardwalk. Before we go to the boardwalk, let's explain what are the rabbis prohibiting over here. The rabbis are prohibiting something which makes a non-physical change to the item that makes only a halachic change of status even though nothing physically has changed the item. Beforehand, the item was unusable. Now it is usable. Let's take a look at the two examples right here on the boardwalk. So here comes the camera. Okay, there are two mitzvahs having nothing specifically to do with Shabbos, okay? This one is all over the world, and this is in the land of Israel. Okay, let's deal with this. When you buy a plate, it was made in France, okay? Usually by some goy, all right? So now I see that the United Arab Emirates is now making plates all over the place. You can buy a plate. It's not made by a Jew. It's got to go to the mikveh. Before it goes to the mikveh, although it's kosher, you're not allowed to use it. It has nothing to do with kashrus. You have to bring the pots and pans and plates and forks and knives and spoons. They must go to the mikveh if they're a multiple-use thing made out of either metal, glass, or pottery. Okay, fine. That's that. So before putting it into the water, I can't use it. When I put it into water, did anything happen to it physically? No. So can I call this makav patish to your rice? Did I put the final physical touches on it? No. But rabbinically, this category of the thing here, it's the final touches that allow it to be used, even though nothing physical happened to it. So the rabbis prohibited bringing things to the mikveh in order to make them usable. By the way, okay, do not make a mistake and think that this has something to do with women or guys going to the mikveh. Even though the woman had, let's say, bled and waited then 7 days after the bleeding, and, she's not able to be with her husband until she goes to the mikveh, she is not a vessel, okay? It's not like now she's able to be used, okay? There is no problem here. Yes, she can go to the mikveh on Shabbos. Okay, there are certain prohibitions about, the shower and stuff before and how to deal with that. My wife dealt with Yael on that subject. Fine. But, yes, you can go to the mikveh, and a guy can also go to the mikveh. You simply need to, be careful about how you carry things or not, or how you dry your hair. Next, leave the plate. Go to the fruits and vegetables. Okay, the land of Israel is the Holy Land because of the agricultural, well, many other things, but there are many agricultural laws, the different tithes, trumot and masrot, that are taken on fruits and vegetables. Before you take the trumot and masrot, depending on the fruits, they are either as prohibited as pork or as prohibited as chicken and cheese, okay? In other words, either they're rabbinically or d'oraisa prohibited to be eaten. Okay, so therefore, taking the tithes from these fruit, even though, let's say I have, 300 fruit here. So my apple, I didn't cut a piece off my apple. I took one of the apples from the side, three of the apples from the side, right? But this apple that I'm eating is no different than it was before. So nothing physically happened to my apple. So what? Beforehand, it's prohibited to eat it. Now it's permissible. This is the exact same thing as this. So you see with this brain scientist, right, the boardwalk is the Jerabbanan. These two guys who are next to each other are exactly the same as each other. Two different things that are the same type of prohibition. Okay. But this guy's standing up. He's also rabbinic prohibition. But he's not in this group. He's a different type of prohibition. Rabbis are prohibiting it for a different reason. Let's discuss this thing. Okay? We discussed the issue of banging out a tune on Shabbos, right? We did that one like a week or two ago?
Yeah. Last week, I think it was.
Okay. The issue is what is exactly the problem? What's going on? If I were to be allowed to play a music instrument, I might come to tighten a chord. If I come to tighten a chord, I have done makva patish d'oraisa. I have fixed the thing, the final touch. So therefore, no playing musical instruments whatsoever. Even those musical instruments which don't need any specific fix. So here, it's a different type of prohibition. With the plates and with the fruits, it's not lest I come to. No, there's no lest you come to. You're not going to come to any d'oraisa prohibition. The whole thing is a completely rabbinic thing because it is making something usable, even if only halachically. Here, by the instruments, the issue is not that. It's we're afraid you're going to break a d'oraisa if we don't make a rabbinic fence. So those two that are sitting down are not a rabbinic fence. It is an extra rabbinic prohibition, but not as a fence to protect us from doing a deraisa. The guy standing up there with the musical instrument is a rabbinic fence to stop us from doing a deraisa prohibition. Okay. Which is why these two are sitting together, that one's standing up. These things are different. They're all on the same boardwalk, which is Durabanan. You're starting to get the idea, you probably figured it out, that this book has a lot more into it than meets the eye. This is not something that when we're done, you guys are saying goodbye to this book. You'll be looking back and seeing it. And the reason I'm showing these things with the pictures is because this is the type of thing you're going to be looking back at this and saying, wait a minute, what type of prohibition is this? You know, where does it go now? Is it a doubt on a rabbinic? Maybe it's lenient, but oh wait, it's not rabbinic. That's deraisa. What type of rabbinic? You know, all these things are going to be necessary. You're going to need it for review, not just for the base, but for life in general. Okay, so do not sell this book when you're done. Okay, keep it. All right.
I've got a question, Rabbi, real quick. It's kind of like festering up here, and I'm not quite sure how to process it. On Shabbos, you shouldn't be carrying anything that didn't need to be carried anyway, from my understanding. Even if it's even being in an eruv. Why would one carry dishes to a mikvah on Shabbos?
Okay, there is a difference between Yom Tov and Shabbos. On Yom Tov, there's no prohibition. You don't need to have a eruv.
Okay.
So even if you live in an eruv community, you are only allowed to carry on Yom Tov those things necessary for that Yom Tov, which means if I have Rosh Hashanah 2 days, I can't carry something for the second day of Rosh Hashanah. Okay, because it's a different Yom Tov. Why? Because I have a leniency on the law of Eruv for the purpose of following Yom Tov and making Yom Tov more pleasant. Whereas on Shabbos, if I have what? What did you say, Shmuel?
Oh, nothing. Sorry, Rabbi.
Okay, so if I'm talking about Shabbos, I am allowed to carry lots on Shabbos. I can even carry on Shabbos, so long as the thing is not muksa, I can carry something on Shabbos, which isn't specifically related to Shabbos. Let's say, for example, I have a fence around my yard, and I just don't like the mess. And the kids were playing camp in the front yard. They brought every pillow and blanket out to the front yard. Now, am I allowed to bring the blankets into the house? I have an eruv. Am I allowed to bring the things into the house? Do I need those blankets now on Shabbos? No. Am I allowed to bring it in? Yes. Why? I don't want it to be messy. Okay? I don't want the pillows and blankets to get destroyed. On a Yom Tov, it's a little bit more strict. Because if I'm using the issue of the eruv, it has to be that it's for purposes of the Yom Tov. We'll get to that when we get to the differences between Shabbos and Yom Tov. So in certain situations, Yom Tov is more strict than Shabbos, and in certain situations it is less strict than Shabbos. Okay? So as far as the carrying the dishes there, you're not allowed to prepare for after Shabbos. Right? But if I was permitted to bring dishes to the mikvah to make them usable, then there would be no problem to carry them there on Shabbos if there was an eruv. Here, the reason I'm not allowed to do it is because I can't use the thing on Shabbos. Okay, and the plate, by the way, is moksa. Why? It has no use. This thing is, I'm not going to use this for food. What am I using it for? Am I Greek? Am I going to throw it around the table when I'm eating? Okay, so it has no, it's got no use on Shabbos. Okay, that would be demolishing anyway. So I'm not allowed to do this. I can't carry the plates because they're moksa. They have no use if they haven't gone to the mikveh yet. Okay, fine.
Excuse me.
Yeah. Okay, by the way, if you ever get in a situation, this is probably never going to happen to anybody outside of Israel too terribly often. But Shmuel, if you ever get to a situation of you have a doubt about whether trumas and meisers were taken on the fruits and vegetables, and you know that they're kosher. Otherwise, we'll get to this in kashrus. It's more. I mean, we did kashrus. I mean, there's a whole. You and I did kashrus together, right, Shmuel?
Yes, right.
Right. So there are things, is it within the first 3 years? And okay, fine. Let's say you know it's kosher except for the fact of trumas and meisers. There is a way on Shabbos you can't take trumot and masrot on Shabbos, but you can leave something aside. I got to tell you, I only did it once. It's very complicated, and if somebody tells you go ahead and do this, don't try it until you've learned it well. I would suggest that you generally don't ever get into a situation where you're going to be dealing with the tithing on Shabbos in a way where you're kind of like after Shabbos going to be doing something different than you made something of a statement before the Shabbos. It's all very difficult to deal with. Basically, if it hasn't been tithed, don't eat it and deal with it after Shabbos, the whole thing after Shabbos. Okay. We did this. Read that last piece, okay. Okay, let's deal with one small aspect of the musical instruments on Shabbos. You may, as you'll get more knowledge, you may say, wait a minute, Talmud's talking about them playing instruments in the Beis Hamikdash on Shabbos, as you were bringing up the Korbanos. So, you can say, I could hear that they, maybe they put tape around the hands so they don't do the D'Oraisa, but they're doing a D'Rabbanan prohibition. How can they be playing musical instruments in the Beis Hamikdash on Shabbos? And the answer is that we have a concept. I don't expect you to remember this. No basin expects you to remember this. Just keep it in your head as a concept. There's a concept called Ein Shvus B'Mikdash. It means that there's no rabbinical prohibitions. There are rabbinical commandments, positive commandments, such as bringing the willows on Hoshana Rabbah and things like that. The Torah reading. Okay. But there are no rabbinical prohibitions in the Beis Hamikdash on Shabbos. What's the issue here? What's going on? It's not just that. There's also certain things that are not specifically dealing with Shabbos. Okay, rabbinical prohibitions in the Beis Hamikdash are not usually found. Why? You got the Sanhedrin over there, which if you make a false move and break Shabbos purposely, the people who are going to sentence you to death are looking right at you. Are you going to do something which is going to end up in a death sentence right in front of the court that's going to hang you?
Hopefully
Probably not, right? Okay, you'd have to, win the stupid award, all right? So therefore, that's one thing. The next is the Beis Hamikdash. People are just in general very careful. There are Talmidei Chachamim running all over the place. The nature of the place is that of service to Hashem. People are at a heightened level of awareness, and therefore the rabbi said there was no need to instate any rabbinical fences to keep us away from D'Oraisa prohibitions on the Temple Mount. Off the Temple Mount in Jerusalem, no, 10 feet away. Wait 1 second. Do I understand that you were moving a ladder when somebody was standing on it?
I didn't let him pronounce it. It's really hot. If I'm going to put him down.
Okay, don't get near him. And if somebody's on a ladder, no games.
I'm going to do it this year.
Nothing. No games.
No game.
It's not a game.
Not a game.
Otherwise, I'll have Benjamin sit on your face. I told him. He weighs 300 pounds. Okay? Okay, move. Just stay and stay away from your brother on the ladder. Thank you. And if you don't, I'll call Benjamin. I'll have him sit in your face. All right. Gotta see Benjamin. So, that's a threat. All right. Anyway, where are we on here? Oh yeah, the Temple Mount. Yeah, the thing. Wait, so, okay, 1 second. Okay, so now don't think that this means that they were able to adjust their instruments on the Beis Hamikdash. Absolutely not. Okay, that would be a deraisa. That was not allowed. Okay, there was a requirement to have music played during the time that the korban, the sacrifice, was being offered. But
And then Nachum came back again in front of shoes.
just one moment. He was just down now, right?
Wait, and he comes and throws something on the knife.
Okay, he's gonna sit here.
Go get it.
Anyway, so on the Beis Hamikdash, there are certain things that, just as there is in other places, certain mitzvahs which actually require us to break Shabbos. For example, let's say your child's the 8th day after his birth is Shabbos. Yes, you're allowed to do the operation. But that's creating blood, and that goes under shochet, right? No problem. You're allowed to do it. And what about killing the animals for the korban? No problem. Why? Why are these things allowed? Because the Torah says, on the 8th day, do the Brit Milah. If it's the 8th day, you do it. But let's say the child was jaundiced, and the bris is put off. He's now 10 days old, and the doctor says he's fine, you can do the bris now. It's postponed till Sunday.
I cannot think. That was going on the path behind the Inatzibui and throwing stuff. I cannot
Okay,
do
I'm
it.
going to get him right now.
I simply cannot do it. This is correct.
Jerks. Anyway, all right. So when the Torah says do something, you have to do it. For example, let's say that you're looking at the Kohen's clothing, the Kohen Gadol. This is, big Kohen serving in the Beis Hamikdash, right? He's wearing shatnez. He's wearing wool and linen mixed. Why? Because the Torah says he has to. The breastplate must be made out of wool and linen. And Shabbos, right, you have the daily offering. I have to bring it. I have to kill it that day. It's another favor, many favors actually. But if I want to bring up my korban chatat, my sacrifice for a sin offering, do it on Sunday. But if I'm allowed to bring a korban, I can bring any korban, right? Wrong. Only that which the Torah says on that day. Or in this way and only in this way, like the Kohen wearing the shatnez, or the korban of that day. And let's take another example. For example, what we already spoke about with taking the skin off of an animal, right? That's not necessary for doing the korban. I can't have the skin on, but removing the skin in such a way where the skin becomes a usable piece of material, that's prohibited. So therefore they shred it off. Okay? Okay, they don't take it off neither. They shred it off. Okay, so they're not doing that malacha. Okay, so basically that, you got that issue. Okay, well, all right. We're about ready to move to the last malacha on Shabbos. Okay, I just wanted to say there's another thing which we are about ready to talk about. I just want to make sure that we don't forget it. Okay, while we were talking about the touches on clothing, like taking the string out, there's another thing you have to do to clothing. Having nothing to do with the final hammer blow. Has to do with the next malacha, which is eruv. When a man buys a new shirt, or a woman buys a fancy dress that has buttons, usually by the guy's shirt, on the inside part of the shirt, like over here, there are like 2 little extra buttons. Not on this side, on the inside. Why are they there? In case one of your buttons falls off, so you'll take it from here, and you'll put it over there. The buttons that are sewed on the inside are not usable now. Why are they there? They're being carried for some time you need it later. They don't go, there's no buttonhole opposite to them. Those need to be removed before Shabbos. Why? Because if I walk outside of an eruv, it's no different than carrying my keys in my pocket. Because these things are not part of the clothing. Oh, but they're sewn on to the clothing. Yeah, but they're not part of the clothing. They're being held for another time, where their use will be by removing them and putting them back on in a different location. And therefore, I have a serious problem. Okay, they must be removed for Shabbos. So, I would suggest, especially by those who have children, but I would suggest by everybody, go to all of your shirts, even those that aren't, Shabbos shirts. Let's say you spill the soup on your shirt. Yeah, so you wouldn't take out a weekday shirt if you ran out of Shabbos shirts. I mean, you gotta wear something, right?
Right.
And what happens if you're walking outside the eruv? So you're not gonna walk outside, or you're gonna forget. I don't own any shirts that have the buttons still on them. As the shirt comes out of the package, I remove those buttons. You want to save them? Put them in an envelope somewhere so you have some extra buttons. But I would suggest before Shabbos, write it down for yourself, remove buttons from any shirts that could be worn on Shabbos, okay? So that's one thing. Now, you may hear some people tell you this does not need to be done. There isn't such an opinion, but if you look at the language in the halachic books about why this is allowed, I don't know about you guys. Most of you make less than $1 million a year, okay? The language of this is, now you're going to have to hold on to this because it's so funny, it's ridiculous, that today shirts are so cheap, and if a button falls off, people will not take the button from the inside and put it where they need a button. They'll just throw the shirt out. So it's no different than the label of the shirt. Now, I don't know about you guys, but if a button falls off my shirt, I don't throw the shirt out. I get another button to replace it. If you are such a person that when the button falls off, you're going to throw the shirt out, so then you don't have to remove the buttons. Okay, because it's just like the labels. It's part of the shirt. It's just some type of a thing that's there. You don't need the label. Okay, but normal people don't throw a shirt out when a button falls off, and therefore you got to remove these extra buttons. Now, with ladies' clothing, be very careful when you buy your wife a nice new dress for Shabbos. They usually I have to go up to deal with stupid children.
See what you have to look forward to, Shmuel.
Sit here now. Sit here now. Don't leave this room until the class is over. You're doing nothing but causing problems. Please. Okay, so inside women's clothing that has fancy buttons that don't look like every other button that's out there, purple with some type of gold on it or whatever, they will have a little plastic envelope that looks like
Yes.
okay, with a few extra buttons, stuck in a little pocket somewhere like next to the arm or whatever, like a little pocket that's completely useless, okay? When you buy a new article of clothing, or if Yael has one now, search the inside of this garment to find that pocket. Yes, that's exactly it. Remove those things from your clothing before Shabbos, because the thing is muktzah. And if you're going to be going around on Shabbos outside of Nehruv, you're breaking a diraisa of carrying. So you've got two problems: muktzah d'Rabbanan, and you got the diraisa of carrying the buttons around. So search any clothing that could be used. This includes winter coats that have a button, not the zipper ones. Okay. Even if okay, well, what happens if my Shabbos coat gets wet? I'm going to use the weekday coat. So you're going to remove that pocket of buttons? It's muktzah, you can't take it out. All of these things, you should have a place in your home, a little envelope or whatever it is that holds all the extra buttons. Don't keep them in or on your clothing. If they're attached underneath or if they're in a pocket, you've got a Shabbos problem waiting to happen. Okay? All right. Okay, time for the last halacha, which we're going to do next time. Okay? All right, we're on page 87. At the last malacha, which is going to be in the book, page 40. Okay? See you all next week. You should finish that malacha and start muktzah. Okay. Take care. Muktzah is not a malacha at all. It's a rabbinic prohibition.
Okay, Rabbi.
Take care.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye. Bye-bye. Send the class to Shira.
I will.
Thank you.